going on, everyone? It's Serjek, and I'm back with another tanking guide. This one was highly requested, and it's been a long time coming. Today we'll go over how to tank Lost Vale and Warhammer Online, Return of Reckoning. In this guide, I will discuss each boss's mechanics and share some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way to help you lead your group to victory. What is Lost Vale? LV is a 6-man dungeon intended for 1 tank, 2 healers, and 3 DPS, but you can bring an off-tank as one of your DPS. You must be level 40 to complete the quests inside the dungeon. The gear from Lost Vale is the Darkpromise gear, which you will need the Invader Ward in order to equip. In order to successfully tank Lost Vale, you will want around 4,500 armor, 1,000 wounds, 0% chance to be crit, and as much block and parry as you can get. DPS and healers should be around 700 wounds or higher for certain mechanics. Lost Vale is becoming increasingly more approachable as players get used to the mechanics, but you can expect it to take around 2 hours to complete on average. As always, some general tanking tips. A lot of the bosses in Lost Vale have a frontal cleave that will kill anyone but the tank, so keep them faced away from your group. Never get out of line of sight of your healers, and never turn your back to the enemy. Before you start, don't forget to grab your quests. All of the quests for Lost Vale can be gathered just inside the entrance to the dungeon. There's also a hidden quest along the shore. Right-click on the dead shipwright behind this cliff in order to receive a quest that will reward you with half of the materials you need in order to purchase one of the Lost Vale rings. Most of the trash pools in Lost Vale can easily be cleaved down by your group, and you should go as fast or as slow as your group is comfortable. The only section I would suggest you really take your time is after the second boss along the spider cliff. These spiders can easily overwhelm your group if you're not comfortable with this area. Remember, don't turn your back on your enemy and you will be fine. Boss number 1, Ahzranok. Ahzranok has 2 mechanics for your group to counter: eggs and a whirlwind. The first mechanic to keep an eye on are the eggs that spawn. Whenever an egg is destroyed, the player that kills the egg will generate threat on the boss. Eggs spawn at 90, 70, 50, and 30% health. Make sure you kill at least one of these eggs as the tank so you can maintain aggro on the boss. There will be 6 eggs that spawn, and each member of your group can and should kill 1 egg, including healers. If an egg is not destroyed, smaller lizards will spawn. These lizards have a true strike attack that, when paired with the true strike of the boss, can nearly kill a tank in a single instant, even with a single smaller lizard. These adds must be destroyed as quickly as possible if they spawn. The second mechanic is pretty simple. Whenever you see the boss summon a whirlwind on top of himself, toss out a taunt in order to interrupt the attack. Boss number 2 is Malghor Greathorn. Malghor Greathorn has 2 mechanics that you should focus on: Pink Musk and an aggro reset. The first mechanic is Pink Musk. There is stationary musk spread around the room, and every 20% of missing health, there will be moving musk that spawns. If anyone steps on the musk, they will generate quite a bit of threat on the boss and receive a stacking debuff that increases the damage received for the duration of the fight. As the tank, I try to absorb the moving musk to allow my party members more freedom of movement. The second mechanic is an aggro reset. Every 20 seconds, Malghor will reset threat on everyone and focus on a random party member. There are different responses to this mechanic. You can taunt and challenge the boss to rebuild aggro, or alternatively, you can step on Pink Musk on the ground to build threat. Keep in mind the stacking debuff you receive when stepping on the musk. Whichever tactic you choose, you should swap your guard to whoever the boss is targeting. Boss 3 is the Darkpromise Beast. The Darkpromise Beast has 2 mechanics: infectious poison and a punt. The first mechanic is the infectious poison. This mechanic starts immediately as soon as the boss is pulled. The poison will appear above a random player's head as a white beam. The poison does ticking damage to whoever receives the debuff. About every 18 to 20 seconds, the poison debuff will swap to whichever player is standing the closest to the poisoned player. The first time you get the poison, the damage is negligible. The second time you get the poison debuff, the damage becomes more noticeable. If anyone gets the poison a third time, they will die very quickly. The second mechanic is the punt. The player with the highest threat will be punted into the air about every 20 seconds or so. Whenever the punted player lands, everyone will take damage. You can reduce the damage your party takes with a challenge, and you should remind them to detaunt for the punt. Alternatively, players that are far enough away will not receive punt damage. After the Darkpromise Beast is defeated, you will find yourself in a tunnel with braziers. Click on the brazier to receive a granted ability called Burn Webbing. You will need this ability for the next fight. Boss number 4 is Dralel, the Whitefire Matriarch. Before this boss, make sure you clear the room before pulling Dralel. Dralel knocks players back and can knock players into the smaller spiders around the room if you're not careful. It's just safer to clear the room out. Dralel also has 2 mechanics to worry about: a knockback with webbing and minor adds. The first mechanic is the knockback. Every 20%, Dralel will knock back the group and root everyone to the ground with webbing. While webbed, players will be unable to use most skills. Using the granted skill Burn Webbing will remove the web and allow players to use their abilities again. Whichever player burns their webbing first will generate a lot of threat on the boss, so all players should wait for the tank to use the granted ability Burn Webbing first. The second mechanic is the minor adds. These adds are parasites that continually spawn the entire fight. Each parasite that reaches the boss will give Dralel a stacking damage buff. The parasites die very quickly, so only one player needs to focus on AoE damage. The first mini-boss, Vale Thornbark. For this encounter, just run up the stairs to the boss, remembering not to let enemies hit you in the back. This is like a mini gauntlet. He will continually spawn adds until he is dead. Once he is defeated, the barrier behind him will disappear. Boss number 5 is Chul Earthkeeper. Before you start the fight, most groups like to clear the Cold Bask monitors from the ramp and in the water below. They are not champions and are easily defeated. Chul only has 2 mechanics you need to worry about: a punt and damaging puddles. The first mechanic is the punt. Every 10% of missing health, Chul will toss whichever player is currently tanking him into the water at the back of the cave, and that person will have all of their aggro reset on the boss. For that reason, your job as the tank is to guard whoever is top of the threat meter. I also like to watch the threat meter to keep an eye on who is going to be next on the list to allow for faster guard swaps. Bringing an off tank can be helpful for groups struggling to stay alive. Remind players to detaunt the boss and to stop attacking after detaunting so that they can stay alive long enough for the tank to swap guard and get back to the fight. The second mechanic is the damaging puddles. Throughout the fight, a red beam will appear over a random player's head, and after a few seconds a puddle will drop at their feet. These beams do not always show for everyone, so make sure you are calling out who has a beam so they can run to the side of the room to drop their puddles. This encounter is everyone's least favorite fight in Lost Vale. Not because the boss is hard, but because no matter which strategy you decide to go with, this fight is filled with chaos that can be difficult to manage for a new group. The strategy you see in the video is recommended for 2 reasons. If you are lacking DPS and need to maximize the amount of damage you can put into the boss, or if you're wanting to kill the boss as fast as possible. The water strategy may be faster, but it's much more difficult to move around and even harder to spot the puddles in the water. The second strategy is to fight the boss up on top where he spawns. This strategy is recommended if you have classes with a lot of survivability, an off tank that can guard when the main tank is punted, or if you're having difficulty moving around and spotting the puddles in the water. This strategy can be less hectic, but will take longer to kill Chul because players that get punted will be out of the fight much longer. Boss 6 is Larg the Devourer. Breaking with tradition, Larg has 3 mechanics that you need to worry about: guard swapping, a charge, and a massive cleave. The first mechanic is the guard swap mechanic. Whenever the boss reaches 95, 55, and 35%, you will see text on the screen that says Larg drools hungrily. Swap your guard to whoever he is eyeing, otherwise that player will die. The second mechanic is the charge. At 90% and 50%, Larg will rush forward, knocking everyone back. You can interrupt this charge with a taunt. And the final mechanic is the massive cleave. A few percentage before 75 and 25%, you'll be notified that he's preparing a massive cleave. At this time, your party needs to all stand together. This damage is spread between all members that share the attack. While you can probably survive it with 2 or more players, it's easier if you spread the damage between the entire party. Another mini-boss that you'll come across is Gorge-Maw Tyrant. This mini-boss is not required, but recommended as a checkpoint for a portal back to this spot in the dungeon. Boss number 7 is Butcher Gutbeater. The Butcher only has 2 mechanics, the Gnoblar and Cooking. As a tank, this is the first boss in the dungeon that you don't really have much to do, other than face the boss away from the group. Your job here will be to hold threat on both the boss and the Gnoblar that spawns. The Gnoblar is the only real threat to you. The longer the Gnoblar is alive, the harder he hits. It is recommended that the Gnoblar is killed whenever his damage bonus reaches over 200% extra damage. To simplify this, most parties focus on the boss until around 60% and 30% health before killing the Gnoblar. Each time you kill a Gnoblar, another Gnoblar will spawn to take its place. Don't forget to taunt the new Gnoblar so it's not running around killing your healers. The other mechanic should be taken care of by one of your healers. The Butcher will call for ingredients to be added to his cooking pot. A player needs to right-click on that ingredient and run it to the pot. The ingredient will be thrown into the pot automatically, and the group will receive a buff if the correct ingredient was chosen. If it was the wrong ingredient, the group will be killed instantly, so there's no pressure here. The Butcher is going to call for multiple different ingredients, but if you focus on the ingredients in these 2 locations, you will have a much easier time. After the Butcher and before Gorak the Ancient, you will come to another barrier and you'll see a large circular stone pad with 4 smaller circular stone slabs. 4 of your group members need to stand on one of the smaller stones in order to drop the barrier. After a little bit of roleplay, the barrier will drop and you can continue through Lost Vale. Boss number 8 is Gorak the Ancient. Before pulling Gorak, you will want to clear out almost all of the adds in the arena to make more room for the boss. Gorak has 4 different mechanics that you need to watch out for: a knockback, lightning puddles, lightning bolts, and an add. The first mechanic is the knockback. Every 20% of missing health, Gorak will knock all players back that are within 50 feet or so. The lightning puddles and the lightning bolts are also tied to this knockback. When he does his knockback, 3 random party members will drop lightning puddles under their feet. Make sure you aren't standing with your back to an obstacle so that you get knocked out of the puddle and into safety. Following the knockback and puddles, Gorak will shoot lightning at everyone in the group. By itself, a single lightning strike doesn't do much damage, but if you're standing near another player or near a lightning puddle, then the lightning damage gets amplified and can kill players very quickly. The final mechanic is an add. At 50% health, an add will spawn on the platform where the boss started. Have your party members focus on the boss. If you have an off tank, they can tank this add away from the boss. If you do not have an off tank, then you can tank both the add and the boss, but the add and boss will be empowered. It can be tricky to tank both the add and the boss at the same time because the boss's hitbox is smaller than his melee range. What I like to do is position myself between the boss and the add. You can block and parry all attacks in a 180-degree arc in front of you, so keep that in mind. Boss number 9 is Sarthain the World Bearer. Before the fight, you'll want to clear out the adds around the arena. On the surface, Sarthain is a very straightforward fight, but there are some tricky positioning requirements. Also, there are more mechanics here than other bosses in the dungeon, but they're easily managed with the proper positioning. The mechanics to watch out for are a frontal cleave, a massive cleave, a healing mechanic, a stacking debuff, and a true strike ability. Just like every boss, Sarthain has a frontal cleave. Specific to this boss, this cleave is 135 degrees in front of him and will hit all players a little over 10 feet away. Sarthain will use this ability randomly throughout the fight, but it has a 15-second cooldown. Sarthain also has a massive cleave similar to Larg the Devourer. Every 10% of missing health, except at 50 and 20%, Sarthain will use his massive cleave. His massive cleave hits in a 180 degree arc and will hit in a cone up to 95 feet in front of him. The massive cleave will split the damage between all players hit. The more players that get hit with the massive cleave, the less damage each person takes. Pairing these two cleaves together, melee can stand inside the 180 degrees for the massive cleave, but outside the 135 degrees of the frontal, ensuring they take damage from the shared cleave while avoiding damage from the other. An easy way to describe this is, I have my melee DPS stand just behind the left leg of the boss. Healers can stand behind the tank outside of the 10 feet frontal but within 95 feet for the massive cleave. The next mechanic is the 3 Darkpromise channelers that surround Sarthain. At 75, 50, and 25% health, these channelers will become attackable and start channeling a heal on Sarthain. Your 3 DPS should specify which healer they will attack before the fight to make this go much smoother. Once the channel stops, DPS can return to their positions. While the Darkpromise healers are channeling, Sarthain will cast an ability called Nature's Wrath that will hit any players on the island with him. This ability will do more and more damage each time you get hit with it. If DPS kills the Darkpromise channelers fast enough, Nature's Wrath will do negligible damage to the tank. All others should stay off the island until all 3 healers are interrupted. Sarthain's next mechanic is a stacking debuff called Draining Vitality. Each time you get hit with this ability, you will take 5% more damage. While it is possible to reset the stacks of this debuff during the healing channel, most tanks will not need to worry about it. The final mechanic is a 30% True Strike ability. This ability has a 20-second cooldown and will be used on the tank throughout the fight. The Wind Tunnel, before Zaar the Painseeker. For the Wind Tunnel, wait for the wind to die down. Travel about halfway through and have your group defeat the adds. Mount back up and wait for the wind to die down again before moving forward. There are faster ways to get through the Wind Tunnel, but this strategy will always work. Boss number 10 is Zaar the Painseeker. Zaar has 2 mechanics you need to worry about, cages and adds. Every 20% of missing health, the boss will put a random player in a cage. If a player is not released from the cage within 1 minute, that player will die. At first, this is easily managed. The last phase, where all 4 cages are full, you need to have the tank kill at least one of the cages. Keep in mind, the boss will have a frontal cleave that can kill players in a cage, so make sure the boss is still faced away from other players. Also, you should have your party members focus on the cages that have healers in them first. The next mechanic is the adds that get summoned every 25% of missing health. While adds are near Zaar, his damage is increased by 50%, so killing these adds quickly is a good idea. Boss number 11 is Horgulul. Horgulul has 2 mechanics to keep an eye on, an explosion and adds. The first mechanic is the explosion. At 75, 50, and 10% health, Horgulul will explode, dealing damage to the entire party, knocking everyone back and spawning penglings. You can challenge to reduce the damage of the knockback, but you should save a challenge for the final knockback. Encourage your DPS and healers to use their detaunt before the explosions. The penglings will continue to spawn after the first explosion, but can be managed with some AoE. Do not let the adds get out of hand. Due to the knockback mechanic, it is advised to put your back to an obstacle such as the tree or the stone, allowing your party to put their back to the stairs. Boss number 12 is Sechar the Darkpromise Chieftain. Sechar has 4 mechanics for you to worry about: the pleasure phase, pain phase, adds, and stones. The first mechanic starts at 90% health. Sechar will enter the pleasure phase of the fight. During the pleasure phase, everyone should stack close to the boss so that the party receives a heal. After the pleasure phase begins, Sechar will start to summon adds every 25 or so seconds. There will be 3 adds. While these adds are up, it is possible to be knocked back, so it is advised that the tank stands with their back to an obstacle. The Pleasure Bringer add will also place a heal on the boss, which can be taken off with Sever Blessings. Any player with the ability to remove this heal should do so and have DPS AoE down the adds. At 70% health, the boss will enter the first pain phase. During the pain phase, all players should spread out. As long as you are outside of about 5 feet from each other, you should be fine. If you're too close, every ability you use will do 700 damage to your party members. At 60% health, the stones at the top of the stairs will empower the boss. The Primal Stone reduces incoming healing, and the Seductive Stone reduces your outgoing damage. Most parties kill the Seductive Stone, the right stone. At 50% health, the boss will return to the Pleasure phase. At 30% health, the boss will swap back to the Pain phase. And at 10% health, the boss will finally end in the Pleasure phase. The adds will not stop spawning during the entire fight. Focus adds strip off the heal debuff from the boss, and watch your distances during the pain phase. Keep an eye on your party members. Sometimes they forget about the frontal cleave and may get hit while standing too far forward. The final boss of Lost Vale is N'Kari the Soulflayer. N'Kari has quite a few different mechanics to worry about. A knockback, damaging puddles, a large frontal cleave, orbs, adds, and the conduit. Before N'Kari spawns, you will need to defeat the Darkpromise summoners for their channeling stones. The channeling stone will give you a granted ability with the same name. As soon as the Darkpromise High Summoner is defeated, N'Kari will spawn after about 15 seconds of roleplay. Use this time to pick up a channeling stone in order to interrupt N'Kari's channel, which we will discuss later. You will need 3 dedicated interrupters in the group to pick up the channeling stones. As soon as you pull N'Kari, she will start using 3 of her abilities almost instantly. First, she will knock up a random player. That player will take damage when they land and take increased damage if they land near or on top of another player. Whoever gets knocked up needs to detaunt the boss. Do not be standing near a player that gets knocked up or you can get the knocked player killed. N'Kari can knock up players every 20 seconds. The second mechanic is the damaging puddles. N'Kari will place 3 damage puddle beams on random players. It is possible for a single player to receive multiple beams at a time. N'Kari can cast these puddles every 30 seconds. You can be comboed into a damage puddle and a knock-up where you drop a puddle and get knocked up, taking damage from both the puddle and the knock, which is a quick death. The third mechanic is the frontal cleave. This cleave has a 180-degree cone and will hit anyone in the room if they're in front of her. This mechanic is the cause of most new players' deaths. For this reason, it's advised that you tank N'Kari in one of the 4 corners of the room. At 80% health, N'Kari will start a channel and orbs will spawn. There are 4 orbs, 1 yellow, 1 blue, and 2 red. In order to pick up an orb, you need to walk through the orb. The yellow orb is for the tank, it will double the player's health. The blue orb is for healers, it will double healing output. And the red orbs are for DPS, and you guessed it, it will double their outgoing damage. You cannot pick up more than 1 orb. Once the tank and a healer have their orbs, the first channeling stone needs to be used. After N'Kari's channel is interrupted, 2 adds will spawn near the door. DPS need to focus down these adds as quickly as possible. While the adds are alive, N'Kari will be empowered and will use a True Strike ability that hits for 10,000 points of damage. Without the yellow orb, this mechanic is most likely going to kill the tank. Once N'Kari reaches 65% health, the Aether Conduit will start to charge up and will be fully charged at 55% of the boss's health. The Conduit empowers N'Kari, increasing her damage by 5% every 5 seconds. This effect stacks indefinitely and will reset once the Conduit is cleansed. Whenever a person cleanses the Conduit, they will incur a 1 second longer cooldown on all abilities. So if you choose to cleanse the conduit, I recommend having someone cleanse it after the channels, making sure everyone stays in range to receive heals during Nakari's channel. At 50%, Nakari will start to channel again and the orbs will spawn. Yellow for tank, blue for healer, red for DPS. Once everyone is ready, interrupt Nakari's channel with the channeling stone. Remember to focus on the ads to stop Nakari from using her True Strike ability. At 20%, Nakari will do her final channel. Some quick advice: if this is your first time in Lost Vale, don't be afraid to take your time with the pulls. You're more likely to wipe on trash trying to go fast than you are on any of the bosses, apart from Nakari. Alright, that's everything in Lost Vale. Tell me, do you have a favorite boss in Lost Vale? So far, my favorite has been the Rhino Secret boss, which I'm going to cover in a future video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.